welcome to this episode of Behind the Screen. Today with me, it is just Cameron today.
Hello.
Now today, it's probably just going to be a quick and easy one. Just go through a couple questions with you. So, let's start with a good one. How do you handle killing player characters?
That is a good question. I generally don't try to kill the players. Is the first part of that. The players can have. I've not reached a point where I've had to think, "Uh-oh, I'm about to kill a player, character." But I always check to make sure what the what does the battle entail. So, for example, I was considering a campaign where at one point players were going to go into a city, and the city has like an abandoned cave that no one goes into, and that's because in the founding of the city, I forget what they're called in D&D terms, but effectively a Balrog had set up shop in that and had been defeated by the founder of the city. And the founder's philosophy influenced the city's way of thinking. Players would go down there to stop a group of cultists trying to release the Balrog, only to find that the Balrog had been released, and combat would have been between them and it. The thing is, the Balrog has a challenge rating of 19, I think. My players were level 5. Would have been level 5 when they went up against it. So chances are a few of them would have gone down. But if a player character dies, one of the things I'll immediately do is once the battle's over, we'll take a break, make sure everyone's okay, and then it's up to the players how to handle the character's death. I will check in with the player themselves, make sure they're okay, make sure that they're that they know that it wasn't a targeted thing. It's not like I'm trying to kill their character. Sometimes the dice decide now's a good time for your character to die.
Yeah.
And then what we'll do is we'll discuss a new character if they still want to be part of the game, and hope that they still want to be part of the game. We can come up with a new character. We can find a way to introduce that new character. And as a general advice for DMs, do not be afraid to keep what was being established for the now dead character, and consider figuring how to put that into the story. If the character if the character had a backstory where they said, "Oh yeah, I came from this town," and the adventurers go past it, make mention of the fact that that this is a town that they are from. Give a hint. Maybe they bump into a relative of the or a friend of the deceased player character. If the character was looking for something, the players might decide to keep on the quest. And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
If they were hunting someone down, have the players find that person.
Speaking of the hunting people down, how do you give hints to your players about a BBEG in a way that isn't obvious to them that you're giving them hints?
So my BBEGs tend to be most of the ones I've planned tend to have like some background, like they have some. So, for example, it depends on the big bad evil. If it's a So, for example, the last big bad evil that I planned proper was going to be a lich. A very powerful, well, not even a lich, like just a powerful, well, effectively a demigod is the best way to describe what would have happened. And so, what would have happened? What was going to happen throughout the campaign is that there were going to be hints that they hadn't. That they were the big bad evil. So, for example, there was going to be a mention of the history of them, what they had previously done. The players at one point would have heard about followers of them, of the necromancer. They would have found evidence that he was actually the one who that his cult was the one trying to release a Balrog in the city. And all sorts of small little hints. Three of my players were affiliated with a plane other than the material plane. Mm-hmm. So one was an earth elemental Asima. So they actually met in my world the Titan Terra that created the elemental plane and then created, along with the other three elements, the material plane. And another was a cleric to Selune. So they actually had a vision where they met Selune in her temple. And the third was a warlock of the Queen of Air and Darkness in the Feywild. And what I did was to hint at the big bad evil was that each time they met one of those three, there was this black spot in the sky above. Whether it was the elemental plane, whether it was Selune's astral area, whether it was the Feywild. Each of them had this black spot, this tiny little black spot. I described it like a dead pixel on a screen. And that was the first indication that the big bad evil. And then from there, it would have developed more and more. So, it's always nice to drop. I always drop very subtle hints at the start, and then as time goes on, progressively get more and more opaque and more overt with what's happening. It's always fun when players start putting pieces together.
It is.
I still...
And then it's fun to throw in that red herring here and there.
Yeah. I'm still remembering the time I was running that World War II Delta Green scenario, and the guy figured out the big plot twist within 5 seconds of me revealing the one clue towards it. It's just like, dude, what the hell?
That's when you change it furiously.
Oh no, by then it was too late. But that's the thing with, like, especially because I do a lot of the mystery stuff as well, is I tend to, like, put clues in. I read a lot of detective novels when I was in school. I read the entirety of Sherlock Holmes, all of Arthur Conan Doyle's work, the 4 main stories and the 56 short ones. So putting all the little clues and bits and bobs there, hinting at something, became quite an easy thing to do, and also reading quite a bit of Agatha Christie. So for me, it's I treat it as, oh, I need to reveal who the big bad evil is. Let me put this in. Let me put that in. And this will be a clue towards them. This will be a clue away from them. Because the trick with me is to be unpredictable with who I'm putting my players up against, so I don't have a pattern.
Yeah, I can.
Last thing I need is my players figuring out my pattern, going, okay, Cameron's mentioned that a lot of fish have gone off. Let's see who's got any affiliation with the aquatic.
Yeah, that could be a big buzzkill. Here's a good question. Bit off topic what we're on. What's the most underrated low-level spell in your opinion?
Low levels. Define low level.
Level 2, level 1, level 3. Or cantrip.
That's not given as much appreciation as it deserves.
Yeah, what's the most underrated spell in your opinion for those levels?
Okay. Actually, let me just grab my player's handbook quickly, because I want to check what level this is. Because if it's 3rd level, it's underrated. Let me go grab it. And for those watching, yes, I am in my pajamas. I've got no clean clothes because I have to brush it.
The video corrupt that I shut it off. It's just audio today.
Okay, we'll cut that.
Yeah, we'll cut it.
Wizards can have it. There we go. Leomund's Tiny Hut is an underappreciated spell. You create a 20-foot radius sphere of indestructibleness. It takes a minute to cast, and what it is it's effectively a giant indestructible tent that can be put up. And whilst it's up, you and 9 other creatures can fit inside it. It stays warm, it stays dry, and anything that isn't supposed to go in won't. So if you're in hostile territory, because you can also change the color of the sphere. Change it to a dark color if you're in hostile territory, and your players can have 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. You can have a long rest, and nothing's going to hurt them. That is a really, really good spell that is underrated, I think, because a lot of players don't necessarily think about the long rest situation.
That's when you roll a D100 and on a 1 and 2, they accidentally put it over a CR10 creature.
Hey, for 8 hours, that creature is stuck.
Oh no,
could
but
also
like they did it like right on top of him, like
ah
very thin layer of ground, and then they did it right on top of him. And after like an hour or two, it wakes up, and then it sees them in this sphere, and it can't get out.
yeah.
It'd be an interesting combat encounter.
I mean, I know something similar happened in a very popular tabletop role-playing game series, involving a wizard, a rogue, a warlock paladin, 2 clerics, a monk, and a barbarian, and a white dragon.
Oh shit.
Because they needed to get mithril from the white dragon. And white dragons don't like sharing.
That's why the wizard sneaks up, gets right next to gets it to where the head of the dragon is just right in range, and then casts it. Just the head.
Good luck sneaking up to it.
Hey, if they roll that nat 20, they get close enough, cast it. That's a decapitated dragon. Because if it's indestructible, it'll go through a dragon.
Yeah.
I could definitely see how that's a very underrated spell.
I would also like to argue Grease.
You don't even have to argue Grease with me. I know that spell is broken.
Because if possible, you can cause that to catch fire. Because I know some DMs are like, no, you can't do that. No, you can. Also, if you're going to get really broken, prestidigitation, you are 1 step away from being a centralized nuke.
Yep.
Heat up those atoms, and nuclear fusion.
Yep. That's the kind of thing, like, you're going to have to roll a control roll on that to make sure you can do it right.
Intellect. I actually have a question.
Ooh, what you got?
So far in our campaign, we've mostly been fighting near major cities and in major cities. What is... Now, one thing I've noticed is that we are in the middle of winter.
Actually, it's summer.
Oh, it's summer. It's just a very cold climate.
Yeah, if you remember in the intro for it, after that big explosion, the country was put into a perpetual winter.
Ah, yes. So, what I'm curious is, what is a location you would like to explore in terms of, not as us the players and you the DM, but just in general? What do you think would be an interesting location to explore the possibilities of?
The old Tale ruins that I have for the country, which was the epicenter of that explosion I was just talking about.
So what I meant by that was, what is an underused place in D&D.
Underused place?
Yeah, an underused location. Like, for example, the Underdark, the Feywild, the Shadowfell, underwater, mountains.
Seafaring travel. That's something I hardly ever see. Like a whole campaign just on the water.
I know Saltmarsh has rules for sea combat, so that would be interesting to get hands on, but definitely something I would like to see. I would also like to see a Underdark.
Too.
Because it would be interesting to see how, for example, how those without dark vision cope.
Another good one would be, in Magic the Gathering lore, there is the plane of Zendikar, right? Where they have a bunch of these floating islands everywhere, kind of like the Avatar movie.
Yep.
That would be an interesting campaign setting too. To wonder how those who cannot fly would get to these islands.
There was a TV show that was definitely meant. It hasn't aged gracefully in terms of the dialogue. It has its moments, but the combat scenes were definitely the more exciting part. But the interesting thing for me was that it was all set on territories made up of mesas. So effectively an island campaign, but everybody was, all the major population centers were on mesas over a cloud line. And everybody rode in airships. And you could even have, like, this show clearly was written for, like, action-prone kids, because you had people driving sky bikes. So motorcycles that could turn into bi-wing aircraft at the push of a button. Do something like that for a campaign, where people are traveling around the mesas and flying around all the while. You've got like the big bad evil's location and whatnot.
Yeah. And if you think about it, getting attacked by bandits up there, it's extra deadly because if you fall off, you're a goner.
I will say, because it was a kids show, they did technically make it so that anytime someone got knocked out of the sky, they got a parachute. I will also point out that below the cloud line is basically hell. Just constant volcanic eruptions and lava everywhere.
Damn.
So, good luck surviving in that for a long period.
Unless you're a fire genasi.
Yep, or a tiefling.
That too.
But a very, very brave tiefling. Well, potentially a kind of druid should also survive in there.
Yeah. And a level 20 barbarian.
If you've reached level 20 with a barbarian, you could throw a Tarask at the barbarian, and the Tarask will be dead.
Oh, here's a good question for you. What D&D rules do you completely ignore while running your games?
Do I actually ignore any rules?
I know I ignore at least one.
So technically, the one that I ignore that I really is interesting is the natural 20 rule. Now, what I mean by that is natural 20s don't mean automatic success.
Unless it's a combat situation, yeah.
Unless it's a combat situation. But to point it out, you've got a 1 in 20 chance of rolling a natural 20.
Mm-hmm.
If you roll a natural 20 in a non-combat situation, I'm going to look at them and go, actually, yeah, you get some more stuff in that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can't think of in terms of like why would a natural 20... Okay, I've now got an idea to homebrew, to test.
A natural 20 will give you more. It won't automatically give you everything.
Well, I've just had a thought, because the worst place then you could get a natural 20 is initiative. So I sort of like the idea now that what could happen is if you roll a natural 20 in initiative, you get a free round.
Oh, damn. I was going to say, actually, yeah, oh, fuck. Holy shit.
So you get a free round to do anything. Effectively a surprise round.
If you want, we can playtest that.
They could give them a test.
Yeah.
Just to see, especially if it's like up against a big bad evil.
Yeah.
That would be like a really cool thing to have as an initiative. I also ignore encumbrance.
Most people do.
Like, you guys are carrying around the stuff to survive and also gold. I'm not going to make you count every single fucking copper coin that you have.
If you start carrying like 7 swords, I'm going to start doing encumbrance for you.
Yeah. There's a reason why Laia was very quick to get rid of all the stuff that she has taken.
It's a different thing if you're grabbing it to sell it as soon as you can. Completely different. But if you're grabbing it as backup weapons, you're gonna get encumbranced.
Yeah, this isn't some JRPG. The weapons don't have degradation unless the GM brings in that rule.
Yeah.
Like, you get 7 swords. There's nothing special about them. Oh, but I might need them for later. No, you don't. You sell them, and then you use the money that you get from them to upgrade the sword you currently have now.
Yeah.
Or drink it all down in a tavern.
There is one rule I do ignore, and you know I ignore this. I ignore components.
Yes. If I recall...
I feel that unless it's a ritual spell, where it's like a ritual cast, you shouldn't need components.
So that's actually quite interesting, because when it comes to the arcane focus of a lot of the spell casting, a lot of arcane focuses, I believe it actually says in the book, if you have an arcane focus, that gets rid of the need for components. The only time you need a component specifically, according to the arcane focus, is if it has a material cost. So, for example, Fireball uses Backguano as its major component, but it doesn't have a price. Therefore, if you have an arcane focus, you don't necessarily need the Backguano. You just use your focus, and that causes the spell to occur.
Whereas
however,
it has a very hefty cost.
Yeah. And that requires you to go get the components, because that has an actual price tag. Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, which is one of my all-time favorite spells. I believe it's an ivory piece that costs 20 gold pieces. Here we go. So in order to cast Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, you need a miniature portal carved from ivory, a small piece of polished marble, and a tiny silver spoon, each costing 5 gold pieces. that would be something that I would say, okay, you actively need to go buy those.
Yeah.
It's not if a player, and it wouldn't be something that I would be necessary, and also it depends on the severity of the price. So, for example, for Mordenkainen's, if a player says, let's say the players have not been at a city for a while, but they leveled up when they were in a city.
Mm-hmm.
Now one of them goes, hey, I've got Mordenkainen's, but I haven't got the components that cost money. I would be happy to say, well, it's 15 gold pieces. If you deduct 15 gold pieces now, I'll say you bought them before you left the city. If it's something like, and this is going to sound cruel, like the resurrection spell, no, you actively need to have gone and bought a diamond worth several hundred gold pieces.
Yes.
Even if it's just a case of you literally say, can I go buy a diamond worth X amount?
And depending on the distance of the city, you might want to be like, okay, let's see if you get there in time.
Yeah. Because if you're in the middle of nowhere, chances are you're not going to make it. Because I don't even think Speak with Dead prevents that. Or, there's like I forget what the name of the spell is, but I know Rowan's got it. Or at least I believe she has. Where if you cast it on someone, it stops the body decomposing. I can't remember if that's enough to delay the countdown before you need a more powerful spell.
I think it extends it just a little bit, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Have you ever fudged a roll as a DM?
Plenty of times. There have been times where I have made characters, especially in Delta Green. I made a monster for it that was so that will, especially if it was about to start wiping the players out. Like I had it so that at one point there were like, I think 12 or 15 of these monsters. They weren't especially powerful, except they were rolling really well.
Yeah.
So I fudged the numbers by adding 20 to their rolls in my head effectively. Because it's a percentile system.
Yeah.
So they had to roll 20 points lower than they actually were. And that gave the players a chance to survive as they shot up a sushi restaurant in downtown Boston. But also, like, if the players are looking for something, and I think now's a good time, I might roll something and then just pretend that it was for something else. Because at the end of the day, it's about the players having fun, and if they're having fun, I have fun, and that's what's needed.
Definitely.
Still need to make that as an actual chain. Sorry, I'm just remembering. Here's a question. Do you throw anything you've made in a past campaign into current campaigns?
Yes. I've already done it, actually, for y'all's campaign.
I can believe that. So I did this as a tongue-in-cheek joke many moons ago. In my Delta Green world, in my Lovecraftian world, there is a sushi chain called Dagon Hidora. Dagon is a deity of the deep ones. And according to Google Translate, so take this with a pinch of salt and a little bit of soy sauce. According to Google Translate, Hidora is the Japanese for dragon. So the restaurant is literally called the Dagon Dragon Sushi Restaurant. Which is just my hilarious little incision. I also have another thing. If I have a particularly favorite NPC of mine, and I'm playing with a new group of people, you better believe that NPC is being included as a potential person that they can meet. What's that? You want to go get something to eat? Oh, here's Jack the Soup Kitchen guy. From this campaign that I created 5 campaigns ago. What's that? You need someone to hire you for a job? Well, as it happens, I happen to know an underworld contact that you would be able to work with that I created for this campaign 3 years ago. What's that? You want to talk to the birds? Well, here's Joey Pecky and the Blue Tip Mafia. It's just the little things, but I enjoy them, and the players, those characters are the characters that the players love.
Yeah.
Especially because they're more fleshed out than intended. So what will often happen is the players will start getting suspicious. The players will be sat there going, why is this character so well fleshed out compared to everyone else? And you're just sat there going, well, that's because they're a character I've been using for the past 5 to 10 years.
Yep. Yeah.
Why is... Yeah. The Maiden and the Blade restaurant, Maiden and the Blade Tavern and Bordello, run by Angeles, the Crimson Tiefling.
But yeah, for the Blight of RN, the big thing I always reuse is the Thirsty Mermaid Tavern. In every campaign I have made, except for Rise of the Third Age, it's the very first campaign I have not used the Thirsty Mermaid. Only because it is set in the same world as the one y'all are running already.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a thing over in America, but over here in Britain, we have got a pub chain called Weatherspoons. So maybe it's a chain pub. I'll need to check how Weatherspoons works. I think it's like you become part of the family and they will be able to supply you with cheaper foodstuffs and alcohol, so you lower the price. So your pub keeps the name,
but
it's part
affiliated.
Yeah. I will definitely need to double check how that works.
But yeah, the other thing that I've inserted into y'all's campaign that I do in every campaign, Hans and Franz.
Yes.
Hans and Franz, and then of course their ancestor
Franz.
Franz. Yes, it's great, isn't it?
Yep.
And then there's Stans.
Franz and Stans and Hans and Franz.
Yep.
I've got another question for you now.
What's up?
What's the best joke character you've ever created? Character that is deliberately designed to be the most annoying character possible. The Steve Urkel of your setting.
I really can't say. I cannot say. You want to know why?
Haven't met them yet?
Exactly. I could tell you. I could tell you about another one, but I can't tell you about the one I created specifically for it. So there was once this halfling named Fosco and his brother Trosco. And they had a business, and they were enemies in a business chain called Fosco and Crosco. And I think you know where this is going. Eventually, there was this big feud about it because both the buildings were owned by their father, but their father passed away and gave them each a building, and they renamed it. I'm pretty sure you know what their father's name was.
Costco?
Yes. And essentially, the party's whole job for 4 sessions was to get these brothers to negotiate a deal to make it Costco's again.
So my Joker character, my Steve Urkel, was a halfling.
They always are.
Called Dagobert Bronzor. A mad scientist with emphasis on the mad and less on the scientist. There is the first time he was introduced. I forget what it's called. It's in the DM's guide. It's it's effectively a submarine in the shape of a lobster. This is something that is in the DM's guide. I'm actually going to go grab the guide.
Do you remember what section it's in?
It's in the treasure list.
Oh god.
But basically, what it is, it's effectively a lobster-shaped submarine. And the guy found it, the apparatus of Qualish. Page 151 of the DM's guide.
Oh my god. Apparatus
Yeah.
of Qualish levers.
Yes.
Legendary item. That's hilarious.
See, I had my players test that for Dagobert because he had built one. No seat belts, no lights, a limited air supply, which is actually accurate to the system, and 10 levers. None of the levers labeled.
And what did you push it in some water or acid to have them test it?
Oh no, they dropped it into the harbor of the local port.
Please tell me they opened the hatch first.
They didn't open the hatch. They did, however. They did, however. They got the windows open. Oh no, the windows had glass.
Oh, okay.
It's to see. But basically, I kept having to. The character got introduced, and the next time he was put into a campaign, he had stolen an iron golem from a very powerful sorceress in a major city, and was going to break it open to study it. He had no real reason to do this other than he liked it. But the important thing about him is that he could not understand what he was doing was wrong. And he also had a very annoying voice. There is a British actor who is sadly no longer with us, by the name of Rick Mail.
You gave him Rick Mail's voice.
I gave him a pitched up version of Rick Mail's voice.
How did your players still let you be the DM after that session?
I have no idea, but he was sat there going, "Oh God!" The problem is, as well, it hurt. I think.
Yeah, it's like, look at this for a whole session.
Not that high, but it's like, oh, what do you mean it didn't work? But it should have worked. What do you mean seatbelts? Seatbelts are expensive.
You built a fucking automaton and you're complaining about seatbelt prices?
I had sponsors for the automaton. I didn't have sponsors for the seatbelts.
Well, maybe you should have gotten just a tiny cheaper, like make the glass just a tiny bit cheaper so you can make some fucking seatbelts.
But then it wouldn't have survived the pressure.
Well, that wouldn't have been your problem.
Would you prefer to have drowned?
I can breathe underwater.
Yes, but not everyone can. I've got to use it.
Well, then you should petition for more money.
I don't do that. It's up for me to do.
What kind of scientist are you?
Yes.
I would love to meet him. That'd be great. I would make a character who cared all about logistics just to have a debate with this man.
You won't win. Because the
I know,
whole
but it'd be funny.
Yeah. I will say, it's that thing where never stoop down to an idiot's level because they are a master and will beat you. He is an idiot. The last thing that happened to him was the workshop that he owned. The workers went on strike because of unsafe manufacturing processes.
They created a union.
They effectively unionized against him.
They invented a union and unionized against him. That's hilarious.
Because he was technically, well, here's the thing. He wasn't technically, because what happened was, he got kicked out the manufacturing guild because of unsafe practices. And as soon as he got kicked out, guild members could go on strike and not work for him. So he got kicked out, and the same day when it got announced that he was kicked out, all the workers went on strike, and he couldn't get anyone to work with him because at one point the players had to roll dexterity saving throws to not be hit in the face by a moving crucible. And the halflings had to jump over the ground rivers of molten iron.
Damn.
Like I said, this guy does not do things up to code. He's the sort of person that would look at Tesla's death ray and go, I could make that.
Better.
You shouldn't, though, Dagobert. Why not? Because it will kill a lot of people. Only if you use it. But if you build it, people are going to want to use it. No, they won't. Why? Because it will kill people. But the people who are going to use it are probably wanting to kill those people.
Well, is this machine going to stop them?
Yeah. They can't get to it. Why not?
It'd probably be painless.
Why can't they get to it? I haven't built it yet. But what if you build it? Well, they won't get to it. Why not? Well, they have to know I've built it. You mean you're going to build this machine and not tell anyone? Well, yeah. I just want to build it.
Have you already built it?
Maybe. Do you want to see it? But
yes.
If it's that easy, Dagobert, you're going to get someone who wants to use it for nefarious purposes. No, I'm not.
Only for the person arguing with them to be one of those people.
Yep.
I've got another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing about one D&D that they've released so far?
I would say one thing I'm actually happy that they're doing is they're reworking monks. Because monks have been rather stereotypical of Eastern. They've been Asian stereotypes. I have always said that if a character, so for example, I was considering running an ancient Greek setting. And I looked at the monk and I said, well, okay, if someone plays a monk, we're going to change the name we're going to change it ever so slightly so it's less orientated towards the Orient, if you will.
Yeah. So
whilst they would be looking at the monk class, it would actually be an athlete. And instead of key, it would just be athlete points. Yeah. Or something like that. Because the idea behind it is that in this ancient Greek setting, athletes are training to do things because they will be training how to fight unarmed, they'll be training how to fight without armor, they'll be training how to do long runs, which would explain why as a monk you get that faster speed. They don't use martial weapons in combat, which makes sense when you're an athlete because you would use simpler weapons because it's easier to patch you up after you've used a simpler weapon than a martial weapon. So
give them a custom discus throwing weapon.
You laugh. I have considered at one point making weapon blocks for all the weapons in the Hades video game, which involves the Shield of Aegis, I believe it's called.
Yeah, the Aegis shield.
Yeah, which would effectively be a giant discus that would come back and smack people.
Yeah. I find it funny because Petraea is an ancient Greek and Roman setting. If you could tell by the naming of the humans.
Yes.
Aurelius, for one.
Is his surname Marcus?
No, what I did was I took Roman names and put them in the Greek format. So what I did was Aurelius of Scios.
Ah. Not Aurelius of Marcus.
Correct. He's Aurelius from Skios, so he's Aurelius of Skios.
What's that technically called? I think it's an eponym.
I think it is an eponym, yeah.
Yes, a person whom, after a discovery, invention, place is named after, or thought to be named, or a name or noun formed after a person. So close.
And then the dwarves are named after clans. Like, sure, they'll say it like this is their last name, but it's really of clan, and then the last name. And then the Goliaths are named more along the lines of America right now, with yeah.
So,
It's one of the simplest ways to add culture to your
oh,
world. It's great.
it would technically be a demonym.
A demonym?
Yes. Because a demonym comes from the ancient Greek demos, people, tribe, and onuma, name. Identifies a group of people in relation to a particular place.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
Got another question. Nandeo?
I've just found the list of different non-standard examples of denomonyms.
Are there a couple that stand out to you?
Well, apparently, the formal ones have some interesting ones. Apparently, someone from Connecticut is a nutmegger.
A nutmegger?
Yes.
That is a very dangerous word.
And someone from Aberdeenshire here in the UK, one of the 32 council regions of Scotland, is a Doric.
A Doric?
Yes.
All right, we've gone a little off track. I've got another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle downtime as a DM?
I'll often ask the players what they want to achieve in the downtime, if they want to do anything special, if they want to do anything, if they want to focus on something. Generally try not to. Generally, I'll have like, here is X amount of time. What would you like to try and achieve in X amount of time?
Yeah.
Call of Cthulhu is really good for that because it gives you a bunch of things to do in downtime, like to improve skills, or players can do this to do their own investigating. Delta Green does something similar. Delta Green's is better, I will say.
Yeah, I took a look at that list. That was kind of what inspired me to make the list for y'all.
Yeah. D&D is a bit looser, but
yeah,
it's nice just to have
a starting
especially
point.
Yeah, especially if players are, especially if you've had like a heavy session.
Yeah.
Like, let's say the players have defeated that chapter's big bad evil.
Mm-hmm.
Or they've lost a player, a member of their party, harkening back to the earlier start of this conversation. Or they've just had a big thing dropped on them. then they will spend that downtime trying to. Then they can use that downtime to try and figure out how their characters would handle it. Maybe they've been given a. Maybe they've defeated the big bad evil, and now they need some time to kind of get the adrenaline out the system of, we just did this, we now need to take a breath and, prepare for whatever's next, but also just de-stress.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been given something by a nobleman. Maybe they've been given a home. It's up to them now to sit down and maybe figure out what the plan is for the home.
Maybe it's in disrepair and they need to repair it.
Or just decorate it in their own way.
Yeah.
Like grow a giant tree out of the turret.
That sounds like it's from personal experience.
No. It's another reference to the popular tabletop role-playing game show. People know what I'm talking about. Your house has never had the same skyline since.
What's your favorite hidden gem in the Dungeon Master's Guide?
In terms of like the treasure or just a general mechanic?
Anything that you perceive as like, oh, this is a hidden gem in the book itself. Like if it's a literal hidden gem or if it's something you find that people should appreciate more, stuff like that.
One thing that in terms of like hidden treasures and whatnot, my favorite thing is the folding boat. You just walk around with a boat in your bag. It's this tiny little box, and then you give the command, and then it can unfold into a small sailing boat.
That's a good callback. That is a good callback for Flight of Fionnare.
Yes. One of my favorite things. I would say that something that the DM's guide has, and I think a lot of people kind of dismiss, is actually the suggested encounter sheets for the different terrains that you are in. Because some of them are really, not only are some of them like really good session fillers, as it were, and I think that's the problem, is that some people just look at them and throw it away because it's like, oh, I don't need this is just filler. You'd be surprised how useful a filler episode is. There's a reason they exist in television.
And even in books, there's sometimes a filler chapter.
Yeah.
It doesn't really progress the story all that much. It's just there to help relax your mind off of the intensity of that part of the story.
And it can be really useful to come up with little plot points. I had a book that I shall not recommend because it was a book that was designed as a joke for 3.5. Which was a little bit raunchy. Friend sent it to me as a joke. But it had it had a D100. It had a D100 plot point sheet. And like 1 to 100. And so I was looking through them, and some of them had brilliant ideas that I would love to do. For example, one that I actually ended up doing that I'm still really proud of is an ogre has fallen in love with a local princess.
That doesn't
Which,
sound familiar at all.
hey now, to give
All
DreamWorks, I
You walked right into that one.
didn't even mean to.
I was waiting for it.
I think this book came out before Shrek. And to be fair, Shrek did not immediately fall in love with Fiona.
No,
But
he journey back.
Yeah. And then he saw her face. God damn it.
Now he's a believer.
Yep. Welcome to the Shrek episode, everybody. But I checked.
Shrek is so.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life. But I tweaked it ever so slightly so that it was an orc, because I kept forgetting it was actually supposed to be an ogre. But I changed it so that instead of it being a one-way thing.
Oh shit.
Because the indication in the book was, it was just blank. It was just an ogre has fallen in love with a local princess. Or a local noblewoman. That could be interpreted in many ways, and so I decided to go with the benevolent route of it's consensual.
It's just that her father does not approve.
Yeah, the father is a massive Knut, and had actually chased the orcs tribe out of the local area. And the local townsfolk actually hate the Lord because the orcs used to be, because the town is a lumber town.
And the orcs are a good workforce.
Exactly. And they never bothered anyone.
Yeah.
They're nomadic people, because in the setting, the idea is that the orcs are nomadic. They may pledge themselves to the ruling power, but they don't stay in one place for too long, unless they are welcomed by the local populace. And the local populace love them because A, they're hardworking, B, they're friendly, and C, they're good protection against the dangerous wildlife that's nearby. Well, here comes Lord Birkenhead, who has his head up his bum, sees the orcs and goes, "Oh, you need to go, you need to go." And the orcs are like, "But we like it here." "I don't care, you need to go." So they left, but he was a runt, the orc that stayed behind, who didn't have any family. So the local hag basically adopted him, and she was fond of the orcs. So she put a little curse that on the Lord Birkenhead, that his daughter would go against anything that he wanted. And one of the things would have been he would have wanted her to marry into nobility, into high nobility. And she falls in love with the one thing that he absolutely hates. And the orc that I created was not a bad person. So even if the curse hadn't happened, they still would have fallen in love because he was never harmful to her. He never stalked her. The only thing he did was he created firewood, because he would chop down trees, create firewood, and then was giving that to the Birkenhead family in an attempt to make up a dowry.
Yeah.
And she would, in turn, the daughter, Guinevere, would hand the I used to think it was either Guinevere or Genevieve, one of the two, would hand the firewood out to the local populace, not because she didn't approve of it, but because the local populace had a much higher demand for the firewood because they could use that to cook, they could use that to heat up. She's got plenty. She doesn't need this. So two very warm and kindred spirits falling in love, having to hide it from the fact that Daddy is a bellend. And then the other one that I want to do with the plot twist is a local giant has taken all the females, all the female identifying people of a nearby village to marry one, to find a wife. Now, that can be dodgy in of itself. I have an idea on how to make that a compelling story. The giant has kidnapped all the women and is trying to get his son to choose one as his wife. The son's gay. He doesn't want to marry any of the women, but he hasn't come out the closet yet to his dad because his dad is too staunch and powerful. So the whole time, so when the adventurers would get to the castle of the giant, and they're sneaking around trying not to get caught, they'd find all the women, and none of the women have been mistreated by the son. In fact, the son has basically made a second village for the women to live in, so that they can, so that at the very least they're safe, whilst he tries to protect them from his dad. And who knows what the players would do then at that point. The best possible thing that they could potentially do is get the son to stand up to the dad. Dad is defeated, however that happens. And then to make up for the damage caused, the women are returned to the village. And a whole bunch of new houses.
You got a housing problem? Not anymore.
The one realtor in the entire village, however, fuck.
Yeah.
Housing crash. It's 2008 all over again.
Do you have any questions for me?
What do you think is an underrated monster from the Monster Manual?
An underrated monster.
Yeah. Whatever counts as a monster according to the Monster Manual. So whatever's in the Monster Manual, effectively.
Yeah. That's a good one. You got me really thinking here.
I only ask it because now I'm thinking about an answer for myself. Let me go grab my copy.
I think that the most underrated monster. Hold on, let me pull up my digital copy.
I've got my physical copy here. Still had the rulers in it from when I was using them as bookmarks. Apologies to all the listeners who've just heard me pop them onto the onto my desk.
Where did I put?
In fact, whilst I'm here, I can also figure out what the heck that demon was that I was talking about earlier. Wasn't that one? A Baylor. That's
Baylor. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Baylor is what I was going to put the level 5 players up against. To be fair, there were quite a few of them. I think there were like 8 of them. I think I actually have an idea if it's the one I'm thinking about. No, not a mind flare. I imagine that mind flares have been getting a lot more usage since Baldur's Gate 3 came out. Yeah, I definitely think this one would be an interesting one for players to fight. And that would be a shadow.
Shadows could be very interesting to fight against.
Yeah. Because what you could do is, because they're technically undead, you could have them be like assassins of a necromancer.
I think a good one for me would probably be the Gale of Duelers. Very underrated.
Gale of Duelers.
Yes, they are on page 139.
139 is the giants, fungi, genies, gargoyles. Ah, yes. These silicone little fellas.
Yeah.
They could
Very
be fun.
underused. Very underused. Because they're even with the nat 20 perception, you cannot really see them because of their false appearance. Because they are indistinguishable from a boulder.
Yeah. That's always useful.
And come on, that rolling attack is great.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a challenge.
Yeah, it's a really cool CR6 monster. It's great for lower level parties because it's about the time where they only have the bludgeoning, piercing, slashing weapons. And it's resistant to those.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good use.
And it's one of very few creatures that has tremor sense.
Always a useful one.
Yeah. So that would probably be, for me, the most underused creature.
Now, I've just remembered a question that I've actually wanted to ask as well. But I was thinking about earlier. What player character race do you think has a bad rep?
Has a bad rep?
So it's got a bad reputation within the community. Not that it's supposed to be like a bad. It's not like in a campaign they've got a bad reputation. No, in the community they've got a bad reputation, even though they don't necessarily deserve it.
Probably humans. Because if you think about it, most people don't want to play a human because,
Human.
Yeah, exactly. It's not bad to play a human. It doesn't change any of the immersiveness, but people sometimes think it does.
Yeah.
It makes them think it takes away from it, but really they're called human, but they're a completely different species to us.
Yeah.
If you really think about it. Especially the variant human.
I would argue the Githyanki and Githzerai. And that's because they have the lore around them has been neglected. So a lot of players will now, especially with a lot of new players now, especially with Baldur's Gate 3, I imagine will be looking towards Githyanki because of Lae'zel and the crashes and the whole plot of Baldur's Gate 3. And I imagine a lot of people will be looking at them going, there's not an awful lot on them. And this can discourage players because people will look at and go, well, there's not a lot of established stuff. You look at the base races that appear in the player's handbook. All of them have an explanation as to how their characters, as to how their races are in that society.
Yeah.
However, a lot of games I've seen and a lot of games I've heard of, people tend to neglect tend to ignore those aspects. So, for example, elves are supposed to be pompous, but most games I've seen, only one or two are actually pompous. Tieflings are supposed to be feared and distrusted by society. I cannot think of a single race that has caused, in D&D, has caused as much naughty fan art to occur as tieflings. They're supposed to be this group of people that are supposed to be slinking away and hiding in the shadows. There is not one NSFW artist that has not attempted to do at least one drawing of a tiefling.
Everyone associates them with succubi and incubi.
Yeah, but it's also a case of. But to quote the brilliant D&D YouTuber Joe Cat, they're hot and they're horny, and everybody's just assumed that. But what I'm trying to get at is races have been described as being X and Y, but so many games go A and B with how they're represented.
Yeah.
Here's what you can do. Use your imagination when it comes to the Githyanki and the Githzerai. If you want to play a Githyanki, you can come up with stuff using what's available, and where there's gaps, fill it in yourself.
Yeah, the Githyanki and the Githzerai, they're basically blank slates.
Yeah. It's the perfect race for you to come up with stuff as a player, and so long as you work with the DM, you can look at it and go, hey, is this okay? And if the DM goes, actually, yeah, I really like that. Do you mind if I incorporate that? It's a brilliant way to have a bit of influence in the world without breaking the DM's game.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to backtrack a little bit. Remember when you brought up the tiefling racism and stuff? That's big part of their race development. You guys haven't seen it much in your campaign because you've only met one other tiefling except for Karma. And the biggest reason for that is they are discriminated against. You're not going to be seeing them. And for Petraia, I've introduced a couple aspects of it with the main church of the country, the Tria Prostadis. They do not like the Fays and they do not like the Infernals. I try to keep that to it because I know that tieflings were given the bad rep because of the NSFW artists and other people like that. Because personally to me, it makes the game more fun if you keep some of those aspects in.
Yeah.
got one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most overpowered low-level spell in your opinion?
We're sticking with the original statement of level 3 being the highest in terms of low level, yes?
Yeah, because I see it as 1, 2, 3 is low, 4, 5, 6 is mid, 7, 8, 9 is high.
I mean, the obvious answer is Fireball.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd also
Fireball,
technically...
counterspell, and dispel magic.
And Moonbeam.
Oh, Moonbeam is a really powerful second level spell.
It is broken as shit.
Yeah.
As my lovely girlfriend Amber keeps reminding us.
In both campaigns.
Yep. Um,
It's crazy.
yeah.
And then there's that third level spell she used last set during the live stream. The fucking thunder one just strikes lightning down each turn.
Yep. Ooh. I have one final question.
What's up?
If you had to localize a campaign, so it couldn't be country spanning.
Yeah.
It had to revolve around one location. You could go to areas outlying the location, but you couldn't go like maybe more than a week's journey away.
Yeah.
What would what would be the focal point for you?
The focal point?
So what is the epicenter of the campaign? Like, is it a major city, what is the major location? Why is everything happening around? What is happening around this one? What is the one location that everything's happening around?
I would probably do a small island that maybe has one city and 3 towns. It takes a couple days to get across the whole island, something like that. And it'd be this volcanic island, so essentially the whole campaign would be revolved around what's going on in the volcano.
Yeah. I would say, for me, what I would do is a major city, but have something special about it. Like maybe the city. So I've got a couple of ideas. Maybe the city is a floating island. Or the city or the location itself is a major trading post.
I just had a really good idea.
You're welcome.
I want to do a D&D campaign around Toy Island from Pinocchio.
Is it called Toy Island?
Yeah, it's called Toy Island from the books.
Oh, in the books. Okay. I guilty as charged. I've not read the book there. Is it? It's Pleasure Island in the film.
Pleasure Island in the film. It's Toy Island in the books. In the book. Sorry, it's one book.
Yeah.
Where whiskey and bubblegum, baby. Whiskey and bubblegum. And then the donkey hot dogs. Kids getting turned into donkeys. That'd be a very interesting campaign to do.
Yeah. I misremembered that fact. You just reminded me of. I had to quickly remind myself that I was wrong about something. It's not Pinocchio's voice actor, it's Bambi's voice actor who went on to become a drill sergeant for the US Marine Corps. I'm not joking. You can look this up, listeners. If you look up Bambi and you go to the voice actor for Bambi, for the child actor for Bambi, went on to become a drill sergeant for the US Marine Corps during Vietnam.
That is hilarious.
Because at the time, it was actually practice not to name the voice actors.
For the children or for everybody?
For everyone. Is it adolescent one? One of them went on. Is it this one? Yeah. Donnie Dunnigan. Went. Shit. He actually became a major.
Damn.
1952 to 1977.
He retired good.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah,
He's in
89 years old.
Yeah, I was gonna say 80s or 90s. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. I would. Well, one thing I want to do. Sorry, just before we wrap up, just so I can answer my question.
Yeah.
Got distracted. Is either do a setting like Laputa from Gulliver's Travels, which later got used by Miyazaki for Castle in the Sky, or a trading city where you've got this city and it trades not only with other places on the material plane, trades with the Underdark, it trades with the Feywild, it trades with the Shadowfell, the elemental planes, the astral sea, all these different ways to travel.
Yeah. But I'm going back to the volcanic island thing. The way I had it the way I would have it structured would be that the party would be chosen as a sacrifice after a week and thrown into the volcano. But after they landed in, they would wake up a week before and everything would just be slightly different. And as they leveled up, that slightly different would get worse and worse and worse and worse. And the way that the players would have to stop it was to just not get sacrificed. The catalyst was their sacrifice. And every time they'd get sacrificed, even if it's just one of them, everyone goes back. And the situation gets worse and dire, and I figured that'd be a pretty fun thing to do.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, if you don't have any more questions, I think we're done for today.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Cameron and myself doing this episode Behind the Screen. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, this is the Penmeister signing off.
Goodbye.